Did you know that there is a force in this world even stronger than Haki? One which very few people have access to. In fact, at the time of recording this, it's just two. Those two characters are Garp and Nami. Wow, Nami, that was a bit surprising. But it's because these are the only two current characters who are able to bypass Luffy's Devil Fruit abilities without using even a single drop of precious manifested willpower, aka Haki. And no, I'm not joking, by the way. It sounds like a gag, but it's not. Well, admittedly, Nami's force is used as a gag. In a comical situation, she is capable of dealing more damage to Luffy than half the antagonists who actually fought him. And the current thought regarding that is that it's linked to Luffy's newly revealed Devil Fruit. The Hito Hito no Mi model Nika gives Luffy the ability to manifest his imagination, something that has been slowly leaking out through the entire series. So the thought is that Nami is only able to actually injure Luffy because Luffy himself imagines Nami as powerful. Luffy fears Nami, and therefore Nami is granted the power of Luffy's thoughts, which would, unironically, make her quite possibly the most powerful character in all of the fictional piratedom. Again, that probably sounds stupid, but so did the idea of using Kaido as a jump rope, but we did that anyway. And as for Garp, his hidden power could be said to be similar, given that Luffy also fears him due to all the, all of the child abuse that happened. But Oda has confirmed that when Garp hit Luffy on Water 7, he did not use Haki to bypass his Devil Fruit. In the SBS Volume 62, a reader asked if it was Haki. However, Oda simply responded that in this case, Garp was using the power of love. The fist of love, to be precise. And bear in mind that this is the exact same SBS segment where Oda also confirmed that a male user of Robin's Devil Fruit would be able to access a very special technique known as Fleur. So take Oda's expanded universe of information here for what you will. But the Fist of Love is Garp's philosophy that subjecting children to brutal hardships makes them better, ? Basically, the idea that pressure creates diamonds. However, in a rather interesting twist, the exact opposite turned out to be true, when the more traditional form of parental love was used by Whitebeard to turn his son Jozu into a literal diamond. But to recap, there are three forces stronger than Haki, being love, imagination, and sort of just pretending it doesn't exist, like what Robin and Frankie did during the raid. So it's confirmed that Garp is not the strongest marine due to Haki, but due to the power of love, which I imagine means that Garp has some very confusing feelings towards his various opponents. But now for a different kind of love with hopefully no fists, here's Mad Monk Rouge, whose hobbies, as identified by Oda, are drinking, traveling, and lovemaking. Although interestingly, the Viz translation turns this into booze, debauchery, and mountain climbing. And look, is it just me, or does using the word debauchery actually make it sound so much worse than it is? But with that, we now know, for some reason, that Rouge is currently canonically the only confirmed non-virgin of the worst generation. So at least we now know why he's always smiling. Now, a lot of this comes down to the idea that one of the big character inspirations for Mad Monk Rouge is Rasputin the Mad Monk, a man whose bedroom exploits, whether they be true or not true, certainly have become the preferred truth. And with this in mind, I think that I can almost 100% accurately predict what Rouge's eventual arc is going to be. He's going to sail to the Roshuan Kingdom, which is the One Piece world equivalent of Russia, at which point he will seduce the wife of King Beer VI, as well as all four Matrio princesses, whose names are Matrio Saka, Matrio Suka, Matrio Seka, and Matrio Sokka, respectively. And Rouge himself was designated as being from India if One Piece was set in the real world. So big shout out to Indian fans there who can now lay claim to the biggest Chad in the series. Meanwhile, as an Australian, my only representation is Jewelry Bonnie, Aussie, who I refuse to believe is Australian because she is so afraid of insects. But hey, at least we're still doing better than Mexico, whose character representation is King Tacos. Back to Rouge though, Oda has said that if Rouge wasn't a pirate, then he would be a cabaret club manager. But I just don't think I'll ever be able to look at that smile the same way again, you naughty, naughty monk man. But Rouge is far from the only man who enjoys spending time on his knees. In prayer, of course. He is a monk after all. But also one Marshall D. Teach is quite the player himself. As in chapter 925, he is depicted as being sensually flanked by two young ladies whose names are Tori and Maki. Now those names are fairly innocuous and meaningless to us Western swine. However, when put together in Japanese, Tori Maki means entourage in its kindest interpretation and gold digger in its least kind. And I think the second version is especially appropriate because joining Tori and Maki on the captain's couch is a 19th century prospector, because I suppose that Blackbeard has diverse tastes. But this jolly fellow's name is Kikipatsu, which is a very clever reference in Japanese, but riddled with much needed missing context for all of the everyone else. else. But stay with me here. Everything is based on this pop-up pirate game, originally made in Japan in 1975, which makes it 47 years old, the exact same age as Bartholomew Kuma, but only if he's still alive. And in Japanese, this game was called Kurohige Kiki Ipatsu, meaning Blackbeard in danger. So long story less long, the old man got his name from a children's game that used Blackbeard's name, and now Oda is using its name to accompany his Blackbeard name. But the really mind-blowing thing is that every single character in the series seems to have a weirdly well thought out name origin. Even the ones like Kikipatsu, who only appear in a single panel. In fact, especially those ones, with other notable examples including Hamburger, Broth Splatterina, and Rear Admiral Akehende, who only ever said one line in the series about the gates of justice not opening, and his name, Akehende, literally means it won't open. Meanwhile, in English, his name was officially translated as you shall not pass. And to be honest, some of these tertiary characters are much more well-rounded in name alone than a lot of the East Blue villains, which Oda just seems to kind of forget about. Because this next phenomena is known as the East Blue Void. Because most villains that appeared during this time completely vanish from this world without a trace. For example, Don Krieg got thwacked in the tum-tum by Gin, then carried off and never seen again. Meanwhile, pussy enthusiast Captain Kuro took a head to his head and was tossed away by Luffy, also never to be seen again. Unless of course you watch the anime, where Kuro made a brief appearance reacting to Luffy's bounty. Toei really betting there that Captain Kuro was going to come back and be relevant in the future. They of course lost that bet, and hence the budget for the anime going forward. The one that strikes me as most strange though is Arlong. For a villain so strongly connected to Luffy, Nami, Jinbei, Hachan, Fisher Tiger, and so many others, he also fell into the East Blue Void. He was arrested, and his current status has never been addressed since. However, the most fun one is Captain Morgan. Morgan singular as opposed to Morgans plural, who is a singular bird. But this is the very first Marine that Luffy took down, and to this day, Morgan's fate is a complete mystery, again just slipping into the void. The last time we saw Morgan was casually sailing through Django's cover story as a free man. But look, speaking of Django, he is an East Blue villain that did avoid the void. However, he carries a very disturbing secret. Now, this is one of the earliest fun facts that was ever given in regards to One Piece, and somehow to this day, very few people know about it. And it blew my mind when I found out, but like, not in a good way. Because did you know that Django's stripy beard is actually a literal mushroom? And not only that, but there is a surprisingly detailed backstory as to why. Long ago, when Django was not as old as he currently is, Django was a quote, wandering dancer, which made him about as much money as you'd expect. And so Django had a lot of free time, which he filled with nothing but sleeping. He essentially Snow Whited himself. But after many days and even weeks of just lots and lots of sleeping and not a lot of bathing, no bathing actually, a mushroom grew on his chin, which Django, desperate for sustenance, ate the head of, but realized that it tasted really disgusting. Despite that, he decided to leave the rest of the mushroom on his chin, and in the words of Eiichiro Oda, he somehow gained hypnosis powers, thus making this the first recorded case of a potential devil vegetable. And in case you didn't know, Django wears heart-shaped glasses because he had them custom made for his heart-shaped eyes and eyebrows. Django is a very strange man. But if you thought that was obscure and pointless, then mate, let me tell you that we have only just begun to uncover all of the weird secrets of One Piece. And this next one is actually pretty damn cool. Do you remember Califa? She's the CP9 agent who was so determined to become a Zoan Fruit user that she turned herself into a soap sheep that one time, which was actually really cute, because if you look carefully, Califa has to use her own arms to mimic the sheep's ears. One tangent here, because this whole video is just a glorified tangent, but Kaku and Califa ate their fruits at random, which means that there was a 50-50 chance that Califa could have become a giraffe. And Eiichiro Oda was gracious enough to even provide us with an alternate universe Califa image where she did eat Kaku's devil fruit, which I kind of love. But Califa has an interesting hidden history in One Piece, because during Robin's flashback on Ohara, we are actually introduced to Califa's father Lasky. The backstory here being that CP9 is mostly made up of orphan children, probably sold to the world government by the Mother Carmels of the world. But in this case, Oda also wanted to explore the idea of generational assassins. Oda refers to Califa as a thoroughbred, implying that her mother was also a member of CP9 and that Califa was born into the industry. In fact, her name Califa quite literally means successor. So we have some very literal naming from her unlikely to be particularly loving parents there, which is interesting because we've seen an image of Califa as a child and things look pretty fairly normal. Alright, look, I'ma unzip my theory pants here and I am going to flash you an idea that I have never dared show to the public before. As we all know, in Water 7, Califa played the role of secretary to Iceberg, or as the anime spells it, Icebarg. But after the whole betrayal and attempted murder, Icebarg needed to find a new secretary, which was featured as a minor plot thread in the manga cover stories. And he did eventually eventually find someone to fill the position. His current secretary has no name and is identified only as candidate number 153. Very Squid Game-esque, but his new secretary looks shockingly like a young Caliphate. In fact, during Iceberg's secretary auditions, candidate number 153 even rocks up wearing pretty much the exact same outfit that young Caliphate was shown wearing. So here's the idea. This girl is Caliphate's younger sister, another daughter of Lasky and unidentified Cypherpole baby mama. And she was sent to infiltrate Water 7 to fill Caliphate's previous role as a spy. Because even though the Pluton plans were extracted and subsequently destroyed by Frankie, this island still holds exceptional importance for the world government, essentially being the world center of ship production, and also now trains. But also because Iceberg is still one of the few living people who has actually seen the plans for Pluton. And you know, just in case there happens to be some information about Pluton that passes through this very Pluton-heavy island, it'd be good to have a spy. Could it be a coincidence? Yes. Is it likely a coincidence? Also, yes. But is it just plain more fun to jump to the craziest, yet still somewhat plausible idea possible? Again, yes. Also, did you know that Kumadori's mother is still alive? Her name is Kumadori Yamanbako, the latter part literally meaning mountain hag. And if you want to explore just how deep the One Piece rabbit hole goes, then I would recommend continuing with this video.